Everyone, my name is Eric Hopkins, aka Joe. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, my WWE recap this week, we've got 5 hours of pro wrestling to cover from SmackDown last Friday night to Raw last night here on USA Network. So, let's get into it real quick. Obviously, we got the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments continuing here on these shows, and that was no different here on SmackDown as we started off the show with Bianca Belair versus Tiffany Stratton. A little bit of controversy online, not really a whole lot with Tiffany Stratton before this match. I guess she had posted a controversial video potentially, but apparently there was no heat backstage. Obviously, it was like a fan made thing, but she posted it, and I guess a lot of people were like, "Oh, she's going to be taken out of this match." Was not the case here. WWE are clearly high on Tiffany Stratton, as they have every right to be, because I thought this match between Belair and Stratton was actually really well done. It was one of the better matches that the women have put on in recent memory, in my opinion. And I thought that this match was a lot of fun. But in the very end, obviously, Bianca Belair throughout this entire match was selling her knee injury that she's had since the beginning of this tournament a little bit here. And Tiffany Stratton tried to take advantage. But at the end of the day, on one leg, Bianca Belair hit the KOD for the win. So this quarterfinal match between Belair and Stratton clearly set up Bianca to go to the semifinals. It's going to be interesting to see if she's going to be facing Jade Cargill, but we'll find out a little bit later on in this show. Yeah, I mean, clearly they love Bianca Belair, and they're going. I think she's not going to win the tournament, as a matter of fact. But we'll just have to wait and see what they do with it. But in my opinion, good call to have Bianca Belair move forward here. Tiffany Stratton is great, but still a little bit young in her career. But she's going to get there, and it's going to be awesome to see where they take her in the future. But yeah, Bianca is the right call in my opinion. We had a backstage segment where LA Knight was coming out of Nick Aldis's locker room, and he comes face to face with Logan Paul. This is what I think will happen eventually. I think these two are going to eventually get into the ring for the United States Championship, as we heard later on tonight on the contract signing that was not going to be for the U.S. title after all, the title for title thing, whether they were just trying to clear up confusion there or whatever. But I think LA Knight eventually takes this title off of Logan Paul. I think that would be the right way to do it. It would also give LA Knight something to do. And these two could have a great match with each other. So I don't know exactly where we're going to get that. I can possibly see this at Clash of the Castle, because I think they might have another idea for possibly adding a match for King and Queen of the Ring. So we'll just have to wait and see there when I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But yeah, these two guys could do a great match together. I think we're eventually going to get it. We had LA Knight versus Tama Tonga in the second match of the night in the King of the Ring quarterfinals. Yeah, Tonga tried to rush LA Knight after the opening bell, but the Megastar saw it coming and unloaded with some jabs. Tonga Loa and Solo Sikoa provided some distractions that allowed Tama Tonga to take control. They made this look like a tough fight for LA Knight, so his eventual comeback would get an even bigger reaction. But despite being in control, LA Knight ended up losing when Solo Sikoa distracted him long enough for Tama Tonga to hit a flatliner for the win. I was actually kind of surprised that LA Knight didn't go a little further in the tournament, but I think they've got some other plans for him for his next couple matches. So in that regard, I'm not too upset about it. They're clearly trying to get over the newcomers here in the bloodline, make sure they're credible. In that regard, I think it is the right call. However, I think Tama Tonga's run in the King of the Ring tournament is coming to it, and probably this coming week on SmackDown, we'll get into his opponent here in just a little while. We had the contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul for their supposed title for title match. Apparently, like I said, either WWE was trying to clear up some confusion, or they were just trying to set it straight here. As Logan Paul ripped up the contract that was presented to him by Nick Aldis. He said that his title would not be on the line, as the contract stated, which is what they teased last week, that it was going to be title for title. Cody putting up his title, and Logan Paul putting up his title as well. But they ended up signing a new contract for just the Universal Championship, or the new WWE Championship. I don't know if they're actually calling it the Universal title anymore. Before Cody Rhodes put one of Logan Paul's friends through a table to end the segment. So, relatively clean between the two guys, I think. Yeah, they're at least putting it out there that this is not for the United States Championship, which I think is, even if that was the original plan and they decided to change course a little bit, I think it makes more sense booking wise to not put the United States Championship on the line right now. Because if you do that, I mean, clearly you're setting the precedent that Cody's going to take both belts. And do you want Cody holding both belts right now? So I think cooler heads prevailed here, even if that was the original idea. But if not, they at least cleared it up to a degree. But yeah, it sounded like that's what they wanted to do. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, that's not, where does that leave Logan Paul after this? So in that regard, I think they made the right business decision at the end of the night. We had Nia Jax versus Jade Cargill in a quarterfinals match in the Queen of the Ring tournament here. Jax took control early on and brought the fight outside of the ring. Nia Jax tried to use a chair, but Jade Cargill grabbed it and used it first, getting herself disqualified in the process. This is a picture of where Nia Jax swung the chair at Jade Cargill. I think Jade Cargill was supposed to block it, but didn't quite get her hands on it. So it basically looked like Nia Jax used the chair first. And of course, that wasn't the actual call in the booking. The call was for Nia Jax to win by disqualification when Jade Cargill used the chair. So this was not well executed, in my opinion. Obviously, it doesn't make much sense for Nia Jax not to get disqualified because she's the one who used the chair first. At least she had the intent to use it as she swung it at Jade Cargill, but the referee called the one. And to me, it looks like, she pretty well made contact here, but at the same time, Jade Cargill is the one who used it in retaliation, and she's the one who got disqualified. I understand why you would disqualify Jade Cargill. It keeps her looking strong. She doesn't actually take a pinfall loss here against Nia Jax. Plus, you don't want to necessarily do Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair already, which is something I speculated they could have done, but I didn't actually think they were possibly going to do it. It just seems too early for them to have beef between the women's tag team champions here. Yeah, so we're not going to get Jade versus Bianca Belair, but looks like now we're getting Nia Jax versus Bianca Belair in the semifinals of the tournament coming up this week on SmackDown, heading into Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on Saturday. So, yeah, I think that is the proper call. If I'm going to make a quick early prediction here, I think Nia Jax wins that match against Bianca Belair, going against the eventual winner from the Monday Night Raw brackets, which we'll get into by the end of the show. But yeah, I just felt like this was not well executed, but it was just kind of underwhelming to say the least. It's just one of those things. It may be kind of where Jade Cargill's a little still green at this point, and Nia Jax is not the greatest in ring talent in my opinion either. But I think she's doing a lot with what they've been giving her at this point. Both ladies are trying their best. I think when it comes to the booking decision, I think it was the right call. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller sat at commentary to watch Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa take on Angel and Berto, an unannounced match without much of a story behind it, but with the champions at ringside, it seemed like WWE wanted to set up the winners as the next number one contenders for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships here. The ref caught Santos Escobar and Electra Lopez cheat and ejected them from ringside area, but DIY won a moment later before they were even halfway up the ramp. This was decent, but nothing to write home about. DIY is a great tag team, but needs more chances to have longer matches to remind everybody exactly how good they are. However, I do like the tag team title match possibly being set up here at some point. I don't know if it's going to be in Saudi Arabia or not. As of the end of Monday Night Raw, they only had 5 matches for the show, so I can see them adding a few of these, and this could be possibly one of them. I don't see DIY winning the titles just yet. I'd love to see a DIY have a tag team championship run here, no doubt about it. But I just don't know if you want to bury Austin Theory and Grayson Waller like that, being they just won the titles at WrestleMania. So yeah, I mean, that very well could happen. But at the same time, I think DIY eventually could even split again. They've done that many times with Gargano and Ciampa. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'd still like to see them have a little bit of a run here and get a chance at the WWE Tag Team Championships here over on SmackDown. So hopefully we'll see that coming up soon. After LA Knight lost his match to Tama Tonga, Carmelo Hayes was kind of, poking fun of him in the back, talking about, he's not going to botch his match and stuff like that. So, but LA Knight's like, yeah, you got Randy Orton, so good luck with that, pal. So, yeah, basically, this is a potential feud again for LA Knight. I think this match could possibly be added to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia as well if they do a little bit more build with it on SmackDown this coming week, the go-home show for King and Queen of the Ring. So, yeah, I mean, LA Knight, like I said, has got a couple feuds in the pressure cooker here a little bit. And we got the potential for a couple good matches out of this. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. But yeah, Carmelo Hayes and LA Knight could have a great match together as well. So I'm looking forward to this whenever they decide to do it. It sounds like they're going to be building up to it at some point. SmackDown main event saw the quarterfinal matchup between Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes in the King of the Ring tournament. Yeah, this was an interesting matchup because it paired a newcomer to a main roster guy with one of WWE's most tenured performers. So yeah, I mean, not only that, the size difference here was very evident. This is kind of made me think of Vince McMahon talking about how he didn't want a lot of these smaller guys. I could see kind of how on camera it looks like the matchup was pretty one-sided because Randy Orton, you wouldn't think of it looking at the guy because sometimes even in days past he was a bit smaller when it comes to some of the professional wrestlers that WWE had. But here he was massive compared to Carmelo Hayes. Now, granted, Randy's gotten bigger over the years, but yeah, you could definitely tell a big size difference here. But to me, as a wrestling fan, I don't care exactly if one guy looks bigger than the other, as long as the match is good. So I don't understand Vince McMahon's obsession with bigger guys only in his company. But that notwithstanding, the Legend Killer became irate after Carmelo Hayes smacked him in the back of the head, which he smacked him hard too, because Randy was on one knee and Carmelo Hayes just disrespected him and gave him a big old Gibbs slap. If any of you have seen NCIS know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so it was just one of those things that he started to assert his dominance in throwing Carmelo Hayes all over the place after this insult. This was very entertaining performance that made Carmelo Hayes look like a future star, but he took one too many chances and jumped right into an RKO off the springboard off the middle rope to give Randy Orton the win here and to advance to the semifinals of the King of the Ring tournament against Tama Tonga, probably on this week's SmackDown heading into Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on Saturday. So yeah, I think Randy Orton and Tama Tonga could have a good match, no doubt about it. But yeah, I don't know, exactly if Tama Tonga is going to be winning. I think it's going to be Randy Orton against the winner of the Raw bracket, which I'll get into here in a little bit. And I think that's going to be the best possible final that you could possibly have at the King and Queen of the Ring PLE pay per view over there in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, I think Randy Orton's the right booking call. And like I said, and Carmelo Hayes is obviously looking good in all the losses he has taken so far, including the match against Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. So they're not burying Carmelo Hayes. He's looking good in losses, which can still elevate you as a talent. And I think Carmelo Hayes versus LA Knight is probably the next spot for him to go. And I think that could be a great match. And who could win that one? I don't know. Both guys could definitely use the win at this point. But either way, it's a good way to highlight a couple of the younger talents over on SmackDown. After the match was over, Randy Orton cut a promo on Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa, who come out afterwards. Randy Orton was obviously spitting like crazy here. He was frothing at the mouth. I don't know what was going on with Randy Orton, but he just had spit flying everywhere on this promo. But yeah, he's basically talking about, we need to introduce everybody to the new bloodline. Well, Randy Orton wanted everybody to remember who he was. He wanted to introduce himself to the new bloodline. So he kind of ran down his accolades and stuff like that. So he said he was going to introduce Tama Tonga to the most famous letters in all of sports entertainment, the RKO. So, yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of disgusting from Randy Orton with all the spitting and slobbering everywhere. But at the same time, I thought it was a good promo, kind of, again, highlighting the semi-final main event match on SmackDown next week. So, can't wait to watch that. Monday Night Raw kicked off this week with Sami Zayn in the ring to cut a promo, basically, promoting the upcoming triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable and Big Bronson Reed. Chad Gable interrupted the promo when he come out and he berated his Alpha Academy lackeys, especially Otis, who he felt like was a huge disappointment. I got to tell you, especially Maxine Dupree in this segment, she did a great job with her facial expressions and really acting uncomfortable around Chad Gable here, no doubt about it, because he's obviously been bullying them in an effort to try to make them better in Chad Gable's eyes. At the same time, he's just been a total D-bag around them. So, I mean, I like what they're doing with Chad Gable here. I think there's another potential story that they're going to be telling with Chad Gable moving forward, which I really am looking forward to. But it sounds like sooner rather than later, we're going to be getting the Alpha Academy turning on Chad Gable here. I actually think it could happen this Saturday in Saudi Arabia at the King and Queen in the Ring PLE. So we'll just have to wait and see if that does happen. But this obviously set up a match between Sami Zayn and Chad Gable here. During the match, obviously, Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa did not want to help out Chad Gable with his cheating ways here. So Chad Gable ejected them like a referee would from ringside. He sent them both up to the out to the back, but Otis remained on the outside, and Chad wanted again Otis to interfere, and he initially didn't want to. So Chad Gable went to the outside and berated him out there, and even slapped him in the face so hard it looked like it legit almost slapped the beard off of Otis's face for sure. But yeah, I mean, at the very end here, we saw Sami Zayn looked like he was going to get the upper hand on Chad Gable, who was distracted by Otis's incompetence, as it were, on the outside. That's when Otis clotheslined Sami Zayn in the corner as he was setting up for the Haluva kick, which allowed Chad Gable to hit the big like a German suplex roll up, German suplex bridge for the pinfall here, which gave Chad Gable a victory over the reigning Intercontinental Champion heading into the triple threat match this Saturday at the PLE. But yeah, this to me screams because Otis looked like he was clearly remorseful, as he told Sami Zayn later on. But this Chad Gable getting the win here probably signals that Chad Gable will not be winning the title this Saturday. He'll probably get screwed over by his Alpha Academy partners here, especially Otis. Especially the way they were cheering Otis during this promo segment. The crowd, they loved Otis. They so want to see Otis turn on Chad Gable. I feel like it could be almost a little too soon to do this, but at the same time, I feel like you got to get Chad Gable rolling here without the Alpha Academy baggage with him. I think where they may be going with Chad Gable may be a little bit better, but I'll get into that here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't see Bronson Reed probably winning either at this point. It sounds like Sami Zayn is going to be retaining the title for the time being, and maybe we'll get Bronson Reed and Sami Zayn one-on-one at some point. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I definitely think the possibility for the Alpha Academy to turn on Chad Gable here to get for Chad to get his comeuppance, as it were, it could definitely be coming up sooner rather than I thought. So, but yeah, we'll have time will tell whether or not if they're pulling the trigger a little too soon on it. But I think it is the right call down the line. I also love the fact that the crowd at the end of at the end of this segment during Chad Gable's theme song, they were chanting you suck," much like they did during Kurt Angle's theme song back in the day. So I was actually sitting here thinking, why I'd love for the crowd to start doing that when Chad Gable came out for this promo. But at the end of by the end of the segment, they were doing it. So I was like, all right, that's awesome. Because I obviously think he is definitely picking up the Kurt Angle moniker here a bit. And I think if done correctly, he could be just as big and just as big of a main event wrestler as Kurt Angle ended up being. So I hope they do it right. And I think they're going to, depending on where they go with the storyline that may happen after he drops the Alpha Academy. So we'll get into that here in just a little bit. We got a backstage segment where someone had attacked Cruz del Toro in the back, so the LWO came to his rescue. By the end of the night, we found out that it was Carlito and the Judgment Day who apparently had attacked him in the back. So, Carlito's kind of, getting that help from the Judgment Day to go after the LWO. So this is going to continue at some point. We'll probably be getting more of the entire team against the LWO. So yeah, this is definitely going to be furthering down the line here and telling the story, obviously, with the Dominic Mysterio, Rey Mysterio aspect as well. So yeah, more of this to come. After this, we had Braun Breaker, who entered Monday Night Raw with a built-up anger after being left out of the King of the Ring tournament. His opponent was Kale Dixon, who was the unfortunate recipient of this anger, so to speak. He destroyed Dixon with the spear and added another on the arena floor here. This poor guy took a beating. Braun Breaker was out to make a point to Adam Pearce and the entire Raw roster here. This poor guy, it was like watching a rag doll get beat up, no doubt about it here. But yeah, we also got some great, the look like Braun Strowman running on the outside and bam, just taking him out here, obviously. And then, of course, the segment ended with Braun Breaker taking a steel chair and destroying this guy's head in between the steel steps. So, yes, this was absolutely brutal, no doubt about it. So, Braun Breaker is clearly a force to be reckoned with here on Monday Night Raw. I feel like they were booking him out to be the heel here in this situation, but he was getting cheers from the crowd. So this might have actually had the opposite effect. So yeah, I mean, they were barking like, Rick Steiner, roo, roo, the whole Braun Breaker gimmick here too. So yeah, this was great. It really made Braun Breaker out to be this killer who was definitely not to be trifled with, obviously. And in the back, we got Adam Pearce, after he put poor Kale Dixon in the ambulance, went up to Braun Breaker. It's like, yo, I've never been good at math, but make this add up for me. What the hell were you thinking? And Braun Breaker's like, you didn't put me in the King of the Ring tournament. That's on you. So yes, this is good. Braun Breaker is off to a great start here on Monday Night Raw, and they're clearly high on him. They've been high on him for a long time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see where they're taking Braun Breaker, and we might have a little bit of an idea of his next match. Again, they were doing a good job of kind of setting up the future as well as telling stuff in the present. So I thought in that regard, WWE was doing a really great job with their storytelling backstage, especially in their backstage promos and interviews this week. So a lot more of that hopefully will come as I think it makes the matches in the ring much more important in my eyes. We had a backstage video package for Io Sky before her Queen of the Ring semifinal matchup with Lyra Valkyria. This was really great. It's kind of done in the vein of Shinsuke Nakamura's, all completely in Japanese and subtitled. But at the same time, this was done in water. So this made her look very menacing. I really like what they did with her here. They're still trying to build back Io Sky after dropping her women's WWE Women's Championship over there on SmackDown at WrestleMania. So I think they're doing a great job with it here. And she had a great showing in the semifinal match of the Queen of the Ring tournament here tonight. Before her matchup with Io Sky, Lyra Valkyria was getting pumped up in the back by Women's World Champion Becky Lynch. They're definitely building Lyra Valkyria up as the next big babyface on Monday Night Raw, because there's really not a whole lot of babyface women on the roster outside of Becky Lynch to really headline the main card here. So I thought this was a great job. And of course, Lyra Valkyria ends up shockingly winning the semifinals in the Queen of the Ring tournament against Io Sky, sending her to the finals on Saturday's PLE in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, Triple H and the creative team have done a fantastic job of introducing Lyra Valkyria and instantly making her feel like a threat in the women's division without over pushing her, in my opinion, too. So it just feels natural, and her in-ring skills are those of someone who can conceivably beat any opponent she shares in the ring with. So adding the relationship that she's forged with Becky Lynch a little bit could play into some storytelling down the line as well. But yeah, this sounds like they got a future star on their hands, and they're clearly excited about it. And I think because of this, we now are going to be probably getting, in my opinion, as long as Nia Jax beats Bianca Belair this week, but I think we're getting Nia Jax versus Lyra Valkyria in Saudi Arabia, and as Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill will probably be going on to defend their women's tag team championships at possibly Saudi Arabia as well if they add this match coming up here in a little bit. But Lyra Valkyria and Nia Jackson, I think what they're going to do is put the Queen of the Ring crown on Lyra Valkyria here to cement her as a new contender in the women's division. I mean, it very well could be Nia Jax as well. You could do that. I just think it would probably be the smarter booking decision, in my opinion, to put it on the newcomer here to establish her as a dominant threat here for sure. And she's been having great matches, no doubt about it. And the crowd is quickly into Lyra Valkyria. They're doing a great job of building up the new talent, which is something I could not say of Vince McMahon when he brought up NXT talent. So love to see what they're doing here with Lyra Valkyria. Can't wait to see more out of her. This is clearly her moment. And obviously, Io Sky after the match was, not real happy about this loss here for sure. But obviously, she's going to rebound as well at some point here. It's probably going to take some time a little bit with Io Sky, but she's doing the right thing, putting over a new younger talent to kind of build up the roster. And I think it will only mean great success for the entire women's division at the end of the day. We had a backstage segment where Ilya Dragunov was being interviewed in the back when Ricochet walked up to him. But that is, of course, when Braun Breaker decided to lay out Ricochet with a big spear into some, containers backstage. And boy, yeah, like I said, Braun Breaker's a killer. And it looks like we're going to be getting Braun Breaker versus Ricochet possibly next week on Monday Night Raw. I don't know if it's going to happen at the PLE. I mean, it could. But it sounds like at that point it might be a two stacked of a card. Especially if you add a couple of these matches I've already mentioned and possibly the women's tag team championship match possibly. Yeah, I mean, it looks like definitely Braun Breaker versus Ricochet, and it looks like Ricochet is next on the hit list. So sucks to be Ricochet. Ricochet's been doing much better as of late. They're definitely been pushing him a little bit. But in this regard, I think Braun Breaker is going to potentially, have another victim coming up here. Ricochet will probably have a decent showing and probably do the babyface valiant effort here. But Braun Breaker is going to destroy him as well as he moves up the ranks here on Monday Night Raw. We had Awesome Truth in the back, and R-Truth said that there's nothing to worry about against Judgment Day tonight for the World Tag Team Championship match coming up. As R-Truth said, he talked to his good friend Andre the Giant, and Miz is like, bro, Andre the Giant's been passed away now for like 30 plus years. R-Truth obviously doing what R-Truth does, as it will make total sense when we get into the match here. Why he said that, because obviously he's been talking about DIY. He thinks they're DX. And he thinks DX is DIY. So, they're doing some more of that play here. But yeah, interestingly enough, though, I looked it up actually. Andre the Giant would have been 78 years old this week had he not passed away, unfortunately. So, I love how WWE knew that fact and they're actually using it as a bit of an homage and a bit of a thank you to Andre the Giant for all of his contributions to WWE over the years. Yeah, I love that they kind of brought this in here. Got a little bit of that, details that only certain fans would have picked up on, but I was one of those fans who actually got to see it. So I love that they mentioned his name here, especially on the week of his birthday. So that was very cool. After this, we got a promo with Gunther in an empty arena before the show started. Clearly, obviously, he talked about how it doesn't matter, what you do outside the ring or whether you've got great entrances and things like that. What matters is what you do inside the ring. Talking about how Jey Uso is obviously very over with the crowd. And obviously, they do all the yeet stuff and everything like that. But Gunther is more old school. He's more traditional. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is what you do inside the ring that counts. And again, setting up the main event match here in the semifinals of the King of the Ring tournament to end the show here in the main event with Jey Uso. We had the return of Sonya Deville. She made her long-awaited return from injury, introducing herself to Zoe Stark and saying hi to her former tag team partner, Shayna Baszler, here ahead of the tag team contenders match for the women's tag team championships here. They had a fatal four-way women's tag team contenders match of kind of like the men did last week for the tag team championships that set up the title match tonight for Miz and R-Truth against the Judgment Day. But yeah, Shayna Baszler looked like she wasn't quite sure about her, Sonya Deville introducing herself to Zoe Stark here. Yeah, something could be coming down the line here, and we could possibly maybe seeing Sonya Deville managing a little bit here. I don't know, or possibly, I don't know. Shayna Baszler possibly might be on the outside looking into this here, but Sonya Deville clearly had some interest in Zoe Stark from the looks of things. But yeah, interested to see where this goes. This definitely added a little bit of intrigue in my opinion, so can't wait to see what happens here. Next up, we had the Raw World Tag Team Championship. Obviously, like I mentioned, R-Truth and The Miz versus the Judgment Day here. Competitive match that gave way to a noteworthy finish as Carlito interfered late in the match, looking to get further in the good graces of the Judgment Day. But that is when, of course, Braun Strowman made his way out to the ring to make the save, tossing the second generation star aside and chasing JD McDonough right into the waiting arms of R-Truth, who delivered an attitude adjustment for the win, obviously paying homage to his childhood hero, John Cena, obviously. Of course, John Cena is younger than R-Truth, but anyway, gotta love that. But yeah, obviously the reference earlier to Andre the Giant, it was R-Truth thinking that Braun Strowman was Andre the Giant. So again, playing on the whole R-Truth gimmick, love to see that. That was a lot of fun. So it just made me smile to see that WWE still, after all these years, love Andre the Giant so much. They will always have great reverence for him and everything that he's contributed to the company. So yeah, and this was fun, and again, it kind of furthers the feud between Braun Strowman and the Judgment Day, as well as Damian Priest had sent JD McDonough to warn Braun Strowman a couple weeks back or last week to stay out of the Judgment Day's business. Braun Strowman's not obliging because he's not afraid of things. Could this potentially set up Braun Strowman versus Damian Priest for the World Championship at some point? Possibly. We could also be getting Awesome Truth and Braun Strowman against the Judgment Day in like a trios match. We could be getting that as well, or a six-man for sure. But either way, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they're going with this. Again, furthering some storylines here, and of course, also furthering the storyline that Carlito is trying to live up to the billing to helping the Judgment Day as well. The show started off with Damian Priest kind of happy that Carlito helped out the Judgment Day to go after the LWO, but then at the end of the show, Carlito's not holding up his end of the bargain, helping out Judgment Day. Like Judgment Day's helping out Carlito. So it's again furthering that whole Judgment Day. Like, this is not what we are. We've not been on the same page here of late. We've got to get this figured out. So good stuff here all the way around. I think it's got some interesting detailing in the storytelling and little subtleties in there. So it's definitely an improvement over their storytelling over recent weeks for sure. Backstage, Liv Morgan confronted Lyra Valkyria and insultingly slapped her, continuing her not so subtle heel turn here. Obviously, this is a bit of an homage to what happened a few weeks back, where Becky Lynch slapped Liv Morgan on the distraction of Lyra Valkyria. Liv Morgan walked up and said, "Speaking of the devil behind you," and then, of course, she turned around much like Liv Morgan did to Becky Lynch, and Liv Morgan laid out Lyra Valkyria here with a big right hand. So yeah, it looks like Lyra Valkyria could be going up against Liv Morgan. I don't maybe Lyra Valkyria wins the Queen of the Ring tournament, and maybe Liv Morgan does win that title from Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch does take that time off that she initially planned to take after WrestleMania. Maybe this could be just a bit of a transitional thing to give the title to Liv Morgan after the injury to Rhea Ripley. That very well could happen. And then Liv Morgan, her first defense could be against Lyra Valkyria. They've never actually stated what the King and Queen of the Ring winners would actually be earning by winning the tournament outside of the crowns, obviously. So this could very well be the start of the fact that the winners could be getting a championship match for their world titles on their respective brands, however it were. So Gunther could get a championship match, or Randy Orton or whoever's the winner of the men's could get a championship match on their brand, as well as the women's could get a championship match on their brand. That may be where they're going. I don't think they've ever stated that. They have. I apologize for being inaccurate on that. But I think this could be a good sign that could be the case, because if Lyra Valkyria wins, they've already set the stage for Liv Morgan to win the title against Becky Lynch and then defend it. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think Lyra Valkyria is ready to win the title just yet, but it'd be a good opponent for her starting out. But then it might be concerning to throw the cold water on Lyra Valkyria's hot start to her career here on Monday Night Raw, but she'd still be the Queen of the Ring winner. So there's always that too. So we'll just have to wait and see where they go with it. But I think it's very intriguing. Good to see Becky Lynch putting over some of the younger talent for sure. Love to see that. We had a backstage segment where Bronson Reed approached Sami Zayn and vowed to win the Intercontinental Championship. That was, of course, when Otis entered the scene. And, of course, Otis apologized to Sami Zayn for costing him the match tonight on Raw. It appears that Otis is genuinely sincere with his apology here, and definitely regrets helping out his partner, Chad Gable, no doubt about it. Sammy urged the big man to stop listening to Chad Gable and start listening to the fans. After all, he has experience in a similar situation, obviously, for sure, because obviously he was in the Bloodline. So a good callback to that as well. So yeah, this all makes a lot of sense, and we'll find out on Saturday potentially whether or not this is sincere from Otis, or he is legitimately, as Chad Gable kind of insinuates a little later on, that maybe Otis is trying to play Sami Zayn here. But I think what's happening here is Otis is being sincere, and he legit feels bad for doing what he did. But again, Not a big fan of Sami Zayn taking the loss as the Intercontinental Champion, but at least in this case, it made sense in story. You could do that occasionally. It's not a big deal if you beat the champion. It's just a big deal when, like when Vince McMahon used to do it, and champions got pinned over and over and over every single week. So in this regard, I think pinning Sami Zayn on the go home show for the PLE is fine. I think Sami Zayn will retain it. It won't be a big deal. But this just furthers the story for Otis and Chad Gable, and I loved it. Obviously, if you do this correctly, Otis could be one of the biggest baby faces on Monday Night Raw right now. He was over big time when he was with Mandy Rose. Now, a lot of that could have been Mandy Rose, but at the same time, Otis is a great character if done properly, and you could have that match with Otis and Chad Gable down the line, which could definitely kind of put a capper on this entire feud here. So that would be a lot of fun as well. And I think Otis could definitely be a contender. Looking at him in this segment here with Sami Zayn, I don't know what it was, maybe because he was wearing a blue shirt, but I just saw a lot of Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Otis here. I don't know what it was. Obviously, a much bigger guy, but Hacksaw was a big dude as well. So I mean, it was just a lot of fun to see here, and I can't wait to see what they do with Otis. I think if done properly, he could definitely be along those lines here for sure. And I'd love to see that. We had a promo in the ring from Becky Lynch. The man hit the ring. She put over the upcoming showdown, but was quickly interrupted by her King and Queen of the Ring PLE opponent here, Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan hurled insults and accusations at Becky Lynch here, no doubt, including that she only cares about herself. Before appearing to accept a challenge for a fight right then and there, instead she backed down, drawing heat from the crowd and telling her rival to go cry about it. This didn't really hit as well for me as I hoped it would. Liv Morgan is getting better, but I still think she could use a little bit of work on the mic, in my opinion. Not to mention the age old heel thing. Oh, let's fight right now, let's go. And Becky Lynch throwing the mic down. Let's go. It just feels like you see this every single week from babyface champions. And then Liv Morgan goes up to the ring to get in the ring, like let's do it, and then she just backs away. We've seen this I don't know how many times from heels in the past. It's just a heel tactic, no doubt about it. And it just felt very formulaic for sure, but at least it's trying to further the match heading into the pay-per-view. So in that regard, I guess it accomplished its goal. This led us into the fatal four-way match for the number one contendership for the women's tag team championships here. We saw a match between Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark versus Katana Chance and Caden Carter, Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile, and Damage Control's Kairi Sane and Dakota Kai. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark earned the win here. The star of the match was Maxine Dupree, who had fans chanting her name at one point. This whole thing with Chad Gable seems to be working for just about everybody in the Alpha Academy, except for maybe Akira Tozawa. But Maxine Dupree, of course, and Otis has been working wonders for, it seems like, as well as Chad Gable. Eager to see the underdog finally succeed here, the crowd kept chanting for Maxine Dupree. For a moment, it looked like she may do just that late in the match, but then the victor struck with Zoe Stark hoisting her up in a powerbomb position and sending her down into the knee of Shayna Baszler. There was a lot of action, but too much going on, leading to a few disjointed spots and sequences. The effort was there, as is the case always, but this probably would have been better as a straight tag team match. But yeah, of course, at the end, with Maxine Dupree losing here, it does kind of, again, play into the storyline that Chad Gable thinks that she's a loser and all this sort of stuff. But again, she's getting over with the crowd. So that's doing wonders for her compared to where she was a few months back when the crowd was basically chanting that she sucks because she couldn't wrestle in the ring. So in that regard, they're doing a great job with building up Maxine Dupree. So in that regard, you got to give WWE some flowers here because that was a situation that Vince McMahon would have just given up on way back in the day. So they continue to try and they continue to do new things with Maxine, and it appears to be paying off now, finally. But as stated earlier, it looks like we're going to be getting Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill at some point. Could this match be added to the King and Queen of the Ring PLE? Very possible. We'll just have to wait and see if Bianca Belair loses her semifinal match on SmackDown this coming week. I think she's going to. So if that is the case, they're probably holding off the announcement of this match until maybe Friday night. So we'll see if that happens for sure. But I could definitely see this being added to the pay-per-view card on Saturday. Backstage, we got a segment with Xavier Woods getting cleared by medical, and Kofi Kingston obviously being very excited to getting back to what they do as the New Day. And that is when, of course, Karrion Kross, who approached Kofi Kingston last week, approached Xavier Woods as well, just kind of setting up this feud, looks like, between Karrion Kross and the New Day. I mean, Kross could possibly be recruiting one of these guys for sure to join the Final Testament, but I highly doubt it. This is starting to feel potentially like this could lead into a Big E return to get the entire New Day against the Final Testament here. If that's what they end up doing, that's great. I can't wait to see Big E return. Not totally sure that's where they're going, but it could potentially lead to that come down the line. Like I said, it could be potentially teasing a breakup between the New Day and having one of the New Day members join the Final Testament. But I don't know if the New Day would actually fall for that. They stick together. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do here. But yeah, I'm intrigued by this at least. the big old handlebar mustache on Karrion Kross. I'm not sure it's totally working for me, but that notwithstanding, love the jacket though. That's a great jacket. But yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes, and if we get the return of Big E, long overdue, and be just happy to see him back in the ring if he could ever get back to doing it again. But at the same time, that's totally up to Big E. He needs to put his health first. Would love to see him back, but at the same time, just want him to have a good quality life as well, and that's all that really matters. Adding to the backstage segments on this week's show, which again I thought was a good thing because I thought it did a good job of building the storytelling around the matches that they're doing. I thought last week WWE kind of took a backseat to the storytelling. Not saying you have to overdo the storytelling with promos and backstage segments and all this stuff, but sometimes it is good to add depth to those matches that you're going to be booking on shows and stuff. So you got to do it at some point, no doubt about it. I did feel like maybe they did a little too much sometimes on this week's show. We had like backstage segment, backstage segment, backstage segment, which I'd like to see them maybe, get minimized down a little bit and maybe tell some more stories in the ring and not just leading up to the matches, but actually telling the stories during the matches. Kind of like what they did with the Sami Zayn stuff and Otis and Chad Gable early on. I like that. But for sure, I mean, so I think WWE's doing a much better job. I'm not really overly criticizing here, but we had another backstage segment with Drew McIntyre, obviously talking about why he wasn't necessarily on the show. But at the same time, he was calling out Damian Priest. It sounds like we're definitely going to be getting Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest at potentially Clash of the Castle. We'll see if they give that title to Drew McIntyre there, or if, like I said earlier, they may be setting up Damian Priest against Braun Strowman. Maybe that happens on a Monday Night Raw prior to that. I don't know. But yeah, it sounds like we could be getting a new world champion. But like I said, if CM Punk costs Drew McIntyre the title again in his hometown in Scotland, oh boy, would that add a whole new element to Drew McIntyre and CM Punk's feud for sure. That would definitely set Drew off like you've never seen before. So that could potentially be where they're going as well, and Damian Priest retain there. So that could be a great idea. So we'll see if they actually pull that trigger. I'd love to see that personally. But yeah, just to get Drew McIntyre on the show here, but would love to see him on the show a little more. But it's kind of hard to put Drew McIntyre in certain segments right now because they're trying to save him for either Damian or CM Punk. So you'll just at least see him on the show, no doubt about it. And I love the stuff he's doing on social media, like from the backseat of his car and things like that. So it's still fun to watch, no doubt about it. We had another segment where Chad Gable was actually conversing a little bit with the Creed brothers, which is where I think Chad Gable is going to be going after the Alpha Academy stuff is done. If they potentially turn on Chad this week at Saudi Arabia, we'll have to wait and see. But I think Chad Gable managing and mentoring the Creed brothers makes more sense because it harkens back to the days of Kurt Angle with the world's greatest tag team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. Again, these kind of like Olympic style wrestlers, old amateur style wrestling with Chad Gable would make a lot of sense. Not only that, we saw Chad Gable kind of, trying to recruit Ivy Nile a little bit in recent weeks too. So we could be getting a new version of the Alpha Academy. So yeah, this makes more sense, and it would still put Chad Gable in more of a main event spotlight here, and the Creed brothers could help him win stuff with Otis and the Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa not wanting to help him win. So it would make a lot of sense here. So it was interesting they kind of laid the seeds here for this potential union here coming down the line here before Otis walked up, and that is where Otis said he was in the back apologizing to Sami Zayn, and Chad Gable was like, "Oh, you kind of setting him up to kind of, you're playing him a little bit here, kind of to help me out." Then he realized, no, he's not playing him here. Like Otis is actually apologizing here, and Gable basically was warning him, you better be ready for Saudi Arabia. So yeah, again, I think the turn's coming. I think Otis is going to turn on Chad Gable, but then again, with the Creed brothers and Gable's back pocket here, this could get very intriguing for their triple threat match on Saturday when the Intercontinental title match. So yeah, I can't wait to see where this goes. This is actually really intriguing stuff. And about call Chad Gable Kurt Angle, but Chad Gable could definitely become the next Kurt Angle if they play their cards right. And I think that is absolutely the direction to go. So yeah, can't wait to see where they go with it. The main event of Monday Night Raw saw the King of the Ring tournament semifinal match between Jey Uso and Gunther. Obviously, Jey Uso is over as crap with this crowd. Jey Uso is obviously his interest is outstanding. Adding the lighting to it, it's starting to, I'm starting to come around up on it. I still kind of would like to see that kind of reserved for maybe Uncle Howdy and the Bray Wyatt stuff, whenever that happens. But they're continuing to do the QR code stuff for Uncle Howdy. Not sure exactly when they're going to be debuting the Wyatt 6 or Uncle Howdy, whatever they got planned there. But that's coming up down the line, no doubt about it. But Jey Uso is definitely mega over. Love to see them do more with Jey Uso here. Kind of disappointed he's not winning the King of the Ring tournament after he takes the loss here to Gunther. Hard fought match by Jey Uso, but Jey Uso succumbs to a big choke here by Gunther to end the show here and to send Gunther to the finals of the King of the Ring tournament on Saturday, possibly against Randy Orton or Tama Tonga. In my opinion, I think you book Randy Orton versus Gunther and you do that match, and Gunther and Randy Orton could be a great match. And obviously Randy Orton potentially putting over Gunther, which I've called all along. Gunther was going to be the champion of the King of the Ring tournament, in my opinion. So I think that is the right call for sure. And you can kind of build up Gunther more and more over the summer before you eventually give the World Heavyweight Championship to Gunther somewhere down the line, either this year or next year's WrestleMania or something like that. But yeah, Gunther is the man. And I know a lot of people were like, well, Jey Uso's over. Jey Uso's the guy that, but like I've said in weeks past, Jey Uso, I think, has some places to improve, especially when it comes to in ring. He's definitely over with the crowd. He's got a great gimmick right now, but I think there's certain moves that he needs to possibly improve on. Like I said, kind of differentiating himself from the Uso as a tag team and things like that. You know, instead of just the super kick, spears, and a big splash, come up with some new stuff that is just uniquely yours. And I think that will definitely help Jey Uso moving down the line here. He's going to be just fine, like I said, as a singles wrestler, as well as potentially rejoining the OG bloodline against Solo Sikoa's new bloodline later down the line this year. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. But this is the right booking call, in my opinion. Gunther is a great professional wrestler, as well as Ilya Dragunov. I've seen a lot of fans online kind of going, well, they're just old school wrestlers. They don't have really much any character. Sometimes that's the best professional wrestlers to have. If you don't like Gunther and Ilya Dragunov, I don't know what to tell you. This is professional wrestling, and it's glad to see it coming back in WWE. And it's not overly focused on just character and stories all the time. Even and sometimes the stories ain't that great. These stories they're telling now are a little more subtle, a little more integrated, and some of the stuff that they're doing. It doesn't always just revolve around the main event picture either. There's storytelling being done on all levels of the shows here, which is what Vince McMahon should have been doing for a long, long time. It's just great to now see that Triple H is finally starting to pay attention to that and start to do the little nuances that makes a great pro wrestling show. Even though it has kind of died off a little bit after WrestleMania, I think WWE is definitely on a hot streak right now. They're definitely doing things very well, and they're doing the right booking decisions. And I think Gunther versus Randy Orton, like I said, makes the most sense. And I think this could be a great match here between a wily veteran plus a new dominant champion who was just the longest reigning Intercontinental champion. So that makes perfect sense for the men's bracket to be the final at the King of the Ring pay-per-view on Saturday. So I hope that's where they go. And I'm sure they'll do it in a way to where Tama Tonga is not like totally buried or anything like that. But Randy Orton will somehow get the win on Friday night this week, in my opinion. And we'll probably get Gunther winning the King of the Ring. And in my opinion, we'll probably be getting Lyra Valkyria and potentially Nia Jax winning the Queen of the Ring. But I think Lyra Valkyria makes the most sense based on where they're at right now to kind of push the new babyface role for her. And again, have Bianca and Jade defend their tag team championship on this pay-per-view as well. So the overall card now for Queen and King of the Ring, obviously we got Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul for the WWE Championship here, not the United States title. We've also got the triple threat match between Big Bronson Reed, Sami Zayn, and Chad Gable. All the storytelling elements going into that as well. We also got Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship on Monday Night Raw, as well as the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring finals for sure to round out the pay-per-view. Only 5 matches so far on the card, but like I said, they could potentially add a few more to kind of fill out the card as we go into the PLE on Saturday and all that good stuff. So I think it'll be good at the end of the day here. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited for WWE King and Queen of the Ring coming up on Saturday, May 25th here on Memorial Day weekend? Definitely comment below. Let me know what you guys think about that. What have you guys thought about the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments? What do you think of SmackDown this week? What do you think of Monday Night Raw? I thought they were pretty good shows, all things considered. Much better than last week, in my opinion. So they're definitely on the right track there. Comment below, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And until my next week's WWE recap, everybody, take care and God bless.